I think there's an importance in having the freedom to choose what you want to do. And I think that glass ceilings have been there forever. And so, because of that, there are these ideals that we now look at as this has to be law, this has to be the rule, this is exactly how it is always going to be. And there's not a realization that these are just norms that we've been reestablishing each generation versus seeing, okay, maybe I want to try that. Maybe I want to go be a mechanic. Maybe I want to, be a neurosurgeon, whatever the category may be. And I think once we're more aware of like good people need to do these jobs versus what is your gender? What were you born as? I think we'll start to see more of a mental shift. Welcome back to session 111, Glass Ceilings. Today's mood music is brought to you by Janelle Monáe and Erykah Badu, Queen.
All right, well, I think this one is self-explanatory. We're talking about glass ceilings and chauvinism.
Yes.
And the definition that we're using for glass ceiling is the invisible barriers that prevent certain professionals from achieving achievements, promotions, and success in the workplace. And then for chauvinism, we are going to use the definition of it's the fixed beliefs and attitudes of male superiority associated with overt and covert depreciation of women. So then my question is, who was the glass ceiling theory originally used for?
Well, I've only ever known it to be used for women. When they started entering into the workplace, I would say maybe in the 40s and 50s. 78. When they weren't able to, like the definition says, get promotions and find adequate positions of leadership. They were just a secretary. So that's what I've always known it to be associated with.
Yeah, same. I think it didn't really pick up until a field picked it up. Sociology is normally the one that picks up things first, and then psychology and so on and so forth. So I think originally women, and of course, racism and the other isms and all that kind of stuff plays a role, but originally women.
Yes, you ladies are correct. It was first coined for women, but now has been morphed into women, people of color, and minorities.
Makes sense. The thing about the glass ceiling is, as much as people would like to believe that we've kind of come so far, it's still present, in a lot of ways.
It's still present in a lot of industries that when I look at them, I'm like, I don't know if I want to be in it anyway, but okay.
Yeah.
But some women do want to be in those industries, which, is fine. But I didn't realize that it was so many industries that still have like maybe 1%, if that, of women in the industry.
Yeah. I think one of the bigger sectors now where people are seeing that is tech or STEM programs that, is currently a very male dominated field. And I think young ladies are starting to get interested in that and are being pushed or encouraged towards entering into those fields, but it's still a very male heavy industry.
And construction workers as well. I think with construction workers, I think the materials that are used it is more complicated for women to utilize because they have heavy machinery, they have cement bags and stuff that you have to carry, and of course I don't want to minimize a woman's strength because we can do anything, but the having to do that on a regular basis can be wear and tear on our body because our bodies were just not built to do things like that. But
Interesting. Yeah, I agree.
I think there's an importance in having the freedom to choose what you want to do. And I think that glass ceilings have been there forever. And so, because of that, there are these ideals that we now look at as this has to be law, this has to be the rule, this is exactly how it is always going to be. And there's not a realization that these are just norms that we've been reestablishing each generation versus seeing, okay, maybe I want to try that. Maybe I want to go be a mechanic. Maybe I want to, be a neurosurgeon, whatever the category may be. And I think once we're more aware of like good people need to do these jobs versus what is your gender? What were you born as? I think we'll start to see more of a mental shift.
Well, I think we also have to remember it's not just the industries, it's even when you are able to break through in the industries that, we don't get paid, well, women don't get paid the same as men, you don't get the same support, you get isolated, and so it's still those types of glass ceilings as well that you're not even able to achieve the same titles or being able to go up the ladder as men do.
Yeah, and one of the difficulties I can also see is when you fall in a couple of categories. You can be a double minority, a triple minority, or a quadruple minority in some aspects. I think when you have intersections like that, it can make it much more difficult for you to break through some of those areas. So double minority would be, Black woman, or a triple would be disabled Mexican woman, so you have all of these layers that can complicate your ability to maneuver in a occupational setting that can, there's a glass ceiling there, but also make that ceiling lower, 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 and lower, so that even it's not as, if I'm a quadruple minority, my ceiling may be down here versus somebody that's a double minority, it's up here, even though we both still have barriers.
Yeah. It's just, when you sit down and think about it as like basic level, it's just kind of like, why do you think because the genitalia did this in the womb that this person can't do these things? Or why do you think because they have this amount of pigment or melanin in their skin that they can't or can do this? Like, you have to really break it down and just realize that these are just a lot of prejudices, a lot of stereotypes and things like that. And there's not going to be a whole bunch of data or research that's going to back up any of these thought processes.
Well, I think you have to think about the history of what our gender roles have, been.
Yes.
Women are supposed to be seen as ladylike and dainty and put together and just, petite and timid and shy. And no, not so much.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I believe that's the outward appearance that people have always painted for women. But when you kind of really dive into a lot of especially ancient history, that women tend to have run a lot of things in the background. One in particular, I believe it's FDR, or Franklin Roosevelt. I believe he was married to Eleanor.
Yeah.
Yes. That, as he got sick, she tended to she actually was, the president and ran a lot of the country. And I think that has happened a lot over, the centuries, that there have been a face of a man,
Mhm.
but the woman has been behind the scenes, steering and either controlling whatever empire, dynasty, whatnot, things like that.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell y'all an industry that I saw, and I was like, yeah, y'all can have that. Pest control. I was like, yep, y'all got it. Go for it. I don't want no parts of it.
Yeah, no.
My skin crawling just thinking.
Uh-huh.
I'm just like, ugh.
Yeah.
It would be spray everywhere.
They'd be like, man, y'all, we don't have to come and have pest control come out for 5 years because she done sprayed the whole container. I sure did, because I was trying to make sure it wasn't on me. So it's on my uniform. It's not really in your house.
I'm not getting under no floors. I'm not going. Not going to no attic. It might be somebody living up there. No, it's just certain things I ain't gonna be able to do.
Right.
No.
Right.
I'm good.
I just found that to be hilarious, because I was like, I wonder if that's why men be like, see, that's why we can't have y'all do stuff, because you want to pick and choose what you want to do anyway.
Yes.
Now that is true.
Mhm.
I can see that argument being made,
Mhm.
that there are some ways that you want to be quote unquote feminine or a woman, but then you only want it when it works in your favor. I do believe that kind of ties into our toxic femininity session, that there are women out there that try to use that to their advantage. Like, oh, I can't lift this because I can't do this because, but I want you to respect me, and I want you to, allow me to do
And be your equal.
Yes. And you can't, sometimes, I hate to say this, but you can't play both sides.
Yeah.
Either you want equal, and equal means equal, the same. Equity doesn't necessarily mean equal.
Yeah.
So I want equity, but if you want equal, then that means you get, you got to go lift that 100-pound TV by yourself. Or you got to go drag that, whatever to wherever. Or you got to solve this problem with no assistance. So I do think we got to be careful as women about what we're saying we want, versus what we actually want.
Because we have open mouth and insert foot.
There are times where that does happen. And I think that definitely happens with the whole glass ceiling thing. Why do you want to get to whatever area you want to be in? Is it for personal gain? Like personal gain, either monetary gain? Is it for professional growth? Is it because this was the dream that I had for myself in my career? Why do you want to get to this level that you want to get to?
And can you do the job? It's not just about like, I want to be able to prove that I can do just as much as a man, or just, lift as much as a man, but can you actually do the job? We have to think, I think men and women have to also think like, okay, there's a lot of, let's just say, strategizing in this leadership position. Are you a strategizer? Not just you can figure things out. No, can you strategize? Can you put things together? Can you coordinate things? Can you communicate effectively? But that goes for both genders.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. I don't think that's necessarily related to the ceiling piece. I agree with you. That whatever you're going to do for yourself, you got to make sure that you understand, or you know how to obtain it. Even if you don't know how to do whatever it is in the moment, that you know how to obtain whatever knowledge it is to get yourself to whatever place that you're trying to be at. Critical thinking is necessary for any high level position. And if you don't have critical thinking skills, you're going to have to go practice.
Yes. I think the other part that we haven't talked about is the reality that a lot of women specifically have been doing these jobs for a really long time. They may not get the credit. Like you said earlier, they may be the worker behind the face. But a lot of the things that they don't allow, we've actually been doing as women. If you look at statistics and studies, they show that, women are, specifically Black women, are the number one entrepreneur currently. We are also the most educated, most highly educated individuals in the United States right now. So I think there are a lot of things that we've been doing out of survival And I think the difference is if you can break through the glass ceiling, you can go from survival to actually thriving.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I know I want. I don't want to be over here struggling, like having to prove my worth. You know what I mean? So that's a whole other topic, but
Yeah. And some of that can come from, when people have had an established level and they feel like someone's coming into their territory, they become possessive, and then I have to actively do things to try to prevent you from getting to whatever it is because this is mine.
Little crab in a barrel.
Crabs in a barrel. I think that happens at all levels.
Yes.
That happens at all levels, but specifically when you have high level individuals or whatever barrier level we're talking about where the ceiling occurs, this is mine. I earned it. It's, this doesn't belong to you. So now I got to either fight you or put things in place that prevent you from being able to access said thing. And it's through that continued unification that the collective can start pushing back on the small subset that has all of that power and that control. I think that happens with the working class towards the elites, and you think about the civil rights movement. So I don't think that's specific to one particular area, but it does happen in this way as well.
Well, I think society has set us up to operate like the crabs in the barrel, because the way people set their companies up, it's creme de la creme. So whoever can get it, that's who gonna get it. But most of the time, the women have to fight against like 4 or 5 men that are not even close to being as competent as she is.
Glass ceilings, gatekeepers,
Nepotism,
nepotism, chauvinism.
That part.
Yeah. I don't know if it's as intense now as it was back in when women first started really getting into the workforce. Women have always worked, but when it was no longer like a requirement for women to stay home, or
when we started getting little rights.
When we started getting more rights, absolutely, and more access to things.
And then men went off to war. There wasn't nobody to do the job.
That too. So I definitely think it's not necessarily as stringent and as thick of a piece of glass as probably it used to be. I do think it's still there. But
I think it depends on the industry. I think some industry glasses are still thick. But I think there are others, of course. Like, I do agree with you on that.
Thinning out.
Or have reversed. So thinking about the field of mental health, that this used to be overly,
which makes no sense. Makes no sense. Who is normally the healers? But we have no mothers of psychology.
Nope.
Fathers and grandfathers, but no mothers.
Yep. Yeah. So, our field was men only.
That had drug addiction problems and incest-related issues.
I was going to say other vices. But if you look at our field today, it is, completely flipped. It is a very female-heavy field. Teachers, the same way. Teachers, and professors, very heavily, professors are still very heavily male-leaning, but just the education field in general, very male-heavy, but has transitioned over to being very female-heavy. I would say nursing as well. So there's some industries where there has been a shift in who is the predominant, body in that field, and the glass ceiling is different.
Yes, I agree.
Because male nurses do not hold the same respect
Yep.
as, unfortunately.
They got a whole name, Merces.
Right. I was going to say Merce.
And if you look at the Fokkers, you'll see what
Mhm.
we're talking about.
Yeah, that's a great example of
Mm-hmm.
that. Hilarious, but
Mhm.
great example of that.
Absolutely. So, I definitely think that we also got to keep that in mind, that there's shifts depending upon industry.
Yeah.
Some I think are very archaic and still like that's it. It's a male heavy industry, and probably always will be, like construction.
Yeah.
It will probably always be very male heavy.
Even I would even say about
And
on the
minority
flip
heavy.
side. Yes, the flip side, hairstylists is predominantly women.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking for a male one for a while because they say male stylists make your hair grow. So I was looking for a male for a long time. I couldn't find one.
Well, look, you gotta be careful with our stylists now, because these jokers come with your hair wash, your hair blow. Man, what are you doing?
Right.
I can style it. I want you to do the others.
Yes.
So I have had my stylist for 10 years.
And y'all know mine. My mama. Thank you, mama, for going into the industry. Yeah. So, well, what do y'all think are some of the mental health impacts to the glass ceiling?
Mm-hmm.
Not feeling good enough, and feeling like you have gone on and gotten either education or gotten certifications, and you have studied and got the experience, and it's still not enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say defeat.
Mm-hmm.
A feeling of, like you said, inadequacy, that I just don't have what it takes. I would say, a fear that if I've tried to break through this before, then I may be more apprehensive to keep bumping my head up against whatever this thing is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think the other one, in terms you have heard each of us talk about this through our process of becoming doctors, is the isolation. Because you are striving so hard to meet these goals that seem unattainable, but then when you get on the other side, you're like, it really ain't all that. So I think the isolation and knowing how to handle it, because you're going to have it, because no one else is going to understand this in the moment that you're going through it.
Yeah. I would also add, there's umbrella feelings, right? So anger is an umbrella feeling. There's lots of other little feelings that fall up underneath that. But I would say, like, I'm upset. Like, I've worked hard. I'm doing the things. I'm doing what I was told to do. I was told, like you said, I was told to go to school. I was told I need to dress this particular way. I need to code switch and act this way.
Straighten your hair.
I was told to present as non-threatening as possible, and I did all the things.
And now I'm bitter.
Resentment.
Exactly.
There you go. Because it seems fruitless.
Yeah.
I work. It's so funny because I have somebody that I have worked with in the past, and that's one of the things that they were talking about. Like, I've been in this industry for 20 years, and I just can't seem to get past here. And one of their goals was to get to, a C-suite level. And, they've, right. So they're like, I just cannot seem to get past here. Every company that I work with, and, they're talking like Fortune 500 companies, like, I don't know what it is, other than for this person, it was more the minority end versus the woman end. But still, the glass ceiling applies all the same.
And I would even say, even if they get there, they are stressed. The psychological part, they're stressed. They probably have health issues, particularly high blood pressure, probably some stomach issues, because sleep deficits, and because of trying to make it and trying to maintain it and prove that you can do the job.
I think this goes back, talk about throwback sessions. this goes back to another one, several that we've talked about in the past, about how this type of feeling can lead to bodily issues, that unresolved feelings, whether that's inadequacy, anger, resentment, sadness, fear, isolation, self-doubt, all of that can ultimately, like, your body will start to break down.
Yeah.
Because it can only hold on to stuff for so long.
That fight or flight, it's too much cortisol rushing through your body, and cortisol is the hormone that was utilized, back in caveman days. Oh Lord, it's a woolly mammoth, let me run. And you only run for a little bit, right, or you gonna die. Like, it's not no whole bunch of options.
Right.
And if we're constantly in that state of woolly mammoth chasing me, like, your body is going to just deteriorate right before your eyes. And that's why, we have the heart problems, and because that's the number one thing in America is heart related deaths and killers and things like that.
And for Black women, hair coming out,
your diabetes, headaches, not wanting to eat or eating too much because it's emotional eating.
Right. Absolutely. And as with all of these things, so this would be a psych 101.
Okay.
Let me just talking about cortisol and just stress and that kind of thing. There's something called general adaptive syndrome, and gas.
That's not what it is, but
you're about to gas yourself up for real. But the Cliff Notes version of it is you teach your body how to adapt to stress.
Yeah.
So if you started off, your baseline was here, and my stress level is here for a certain amount of time, my baseline rises up to this.
Yep.
So now this becomes my new baseline. So then I continue to get stressed. My stress level goes up. My baseline rises up to that next stress level, because I'm teaching my body how to hold this distress and not go back down to my baseline. And it takes a lot of work to return to your original, baseline level.
Yes. And I have a story for that. So when I worked for said company, we had just graduated from getting our doctorate degree. And so I would, going to work, it was from 8 to 5. And so I would go to work and I would finish my work by maybe 12 o'clock. And I would just go around bothering my coworkers. And so they'd be like, Dr. Jones, leave me alone. How are you finished with all your work? I would see all my clients, do all of my notes, do my treatment plans. I would be done. So I remember one of my girlfriends was like, LaVanya, you do know that you graduated, right? I was like, yeah, what you talking about? You don't have to work at that level no more. You can slow down, you can calm down and pace yourself throughout the day. Like, you don't have to get your work done like immediately. Like, you can stop it now. But it took me about maybe a year or two to stop operating like that. Because obviously, as we're working on our doctorate degree, we have deadlines, we have to work, we got to go to class, we got to turn in an assignment, got to work, got to read an assignment. You see what I'm saying? So we're so used to having something to do every second of our day.
Anxiety feel.
Exactly.
Like when I look back on upper education, it's nothing but anxiety. It's like, okay, did I sign up for the right classes? Did I meet with my financial aid person? Did I talk to my okay, what about my work schedule? Am I going to be able to work all these jobs? And I've told this story before. I didn't know that I was as stressed as I was until the final day of finals, my first semester as a freshman, and my bestie Trish had to come get me out the shower because I done collapsed.
Oh, wow.
Because I was that stressed out. Because I've always been an overachiever. Okay, I got to get straight A's. I got to make sure this is like this. I got to make sure I'm presenting well. I'm not non-threatening. Like, do I look coffered? Do I put on my, like that?
Yeah.
I knew me going to college, being one of the first people that's going to go all the way, that I had to bring my A game. Not realizing I was bringing like A++++ game, and I needed to calm down.
And I didn't realize that I was that stressed until my girlfriend told me that. But also when we graduated, when Dr. such and such hooded me, I just bust out crying.
Girl,
Like I was in his arms crying. And the CEO of the school then, because they was like, okay, because I was actually the last person in line. So they was like, and the CEO was like, let her finish.
when we stood up, and you know how they confer before you walk. I was like, oh Lord, where did that come from? Because I was ready to be done. Y'all know my situation with the doctorate. I was like, eh. And my mom was not too far back, because you know doctoral graduations are not big classes or whatever. And my mom was like, okay, she all right. She all right. And then I look over and my homegirl that I had befriended was doing the same thing. So I said, oh, we got to get it together.
Oh my goodness.
But that's how that's the level of gas that you have to pay attention to.
Yeah.
It's not just gas in your chest.
Yes.
And two other things that we often see, just so that y'all have like a wide range, is that we do typically diagnose generalized anxiety disorder for people that come into the office, as well as major depressive disorder. People be thinking they all right, ain't nothing.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
For sure.
Right.
Man, I wish there were some other diagnoses that they would allow like different names for, because sometimes there's not something that fits quite well.
We need a gas diagnosis.
Stress, high stress disorder.
Yeah, exactly.
Prolonged stress exposure disorder.
Yes.
Something like that. You know, I think we do need something where what people experience on a day-to-day basis, whether that is from financial stress, whether that is from occupational stress, not abusive but family stress. I do think that we need something that can communicate and speak to that a little bit better.
And not just adjustment disorder.
And not a Z code. It needs to be an F.
That y'all not going to pay for.
That's a whole other situation.
We're having a whole different discussion, y'all.
I know.
But one thing that I was looking at just a moment ago, as far as like the glass ceiling, when we were talking about industries that have flipped or in the process of flipping, they have a new term for that called the glass escalator. And that is where men are becoming more predominant in female heavy industries.
Okay.
So it's as if because they get promoted quicker, they get more recognition. So they have an escalator sailing them to the top, versus where, you know, on the flip side, ours tends to be like boom, boom, that kind of thing.
And we have to step on people, or they, because I ain't stepping on nobody, but some people have to step on people and be backbiters and knife stabbers.
Yes. And I thought that was an interesting concept, because you don't ever think about like someone being pushed to the front. You know, everybody wants to say, "Oh, I climbed and I pulled myself up by my bootstraps."
Get it out the mud.
Everybody's self-made. Yeah, everybody's self-made, right?
Yeah.
But there are advantages for certain things. There are, certain advantages in certain industries for being male, just like there are certain advantages in certain industries for being female.
Like I would say, in our field, because there's such a dire need for Black men, I can see them skating right, because they desperately need it. We need you. Come on, you can be the clinical director.
Don't do that. Don't set yourself up for failure.
It happens.
It happens.
It does.
So I just thought that was an interesting concept. That happens. Because I was like, oh shoot, that's frustrating. Because the people around you watching it.
Yeah. And women who have been in this industry for umpteen years, it's like, wait, what? What just happened?
Yeah. I was watching a YouTube video the other day, and this person was talking about specifically the music industry and how there are a lot of music execs now that are women. But traditionally, it's been extremely difficult for women to have any kind of prominence in the music industry. However, that within the last maybe, I think she said maybe 5 to 6 years, there's really been this push about Black women being in the front and like pandering to Black women, and how there's a lot of companies now that are pushing Black women to be in these leadership positions when beforehand they could have cared less about you being at the highest level, but because now it looks good, that they're doing that as a way to.
But I wonder if it's sustainable.
It's a good question.
Yeah, I know. Let me call her by her right name now. Lotto recently did an interview on The Breakfast Club, just talking about how difficult it has been for her to be a female rapper, and how there were certain male rappers wanting to trade verses for sexual acts. You know what I mean? It's just like, sir, we talking over the mic, not over your mic. Like that don't even go together.
Right. And you know the thing about it is, like, sir, did anybody ask you to do sexual favors?
And if they did, that's your business.
Right.
It's a weird thing, and we get it. You know, sex does sell, but like we said, with Hustle and Flow, I get to choose.
Right.
That.
Yeah.
You don't get to force me into nothing.
Absolutely.
So that means if I'm choosing, then I'm coming to you. You ain't got to ask me, because I'm gonna come to you.
Yeah. Especially when you are one of the female rappers that is more body positive, sexually expressive. Like you think a Meg Thee Stallion ain't gonna tell you how she wants you to do whatever the
right.
That's a lot of big old woman.
Man. So there's a lot there.
Yep.
How do you think the glass ceiling shows up, like, on the other end? So what I mean by that, I imagine that it dictates like hiring practices, or, you know, the choice that the higher ups make, you know, on our individual perceptions on who we think is appropriate for a particular position.
I know that there is a quota for most companies still. So we need to have this amount of people. This needs to be what the diversity looks like. But even currently, when you look at the board, when you look at the top positions, there's stereotypically still Caucasian males, old Caucasian males. And you will see an occasional Asian male or woman. You'll see an occasional, nowadays more likely, Black woman. You still do occasionally see a Black male or a Hispanic male who's white passing. So I think they have the numbers that they want. But I think once it gets to those promotions or hiring from the outside, when it's not for publicity or for something, I think you have to have really good, kind, and people with integrity in those hiring positions to get there, and people that's going to pay you your worth.
Yeah. But if you don't, then they have these internal biases. And so even if they do promote someone of color or they hire someone of color, you still have to have a certain look. You still have to have a certain etiquette or articulation or intelligence or whatnot. So you can't, like, we wouldn't be able to go in there with our fro, because their bias is still going to prevent them from hiring us.
Do you think that there's a different glass ceiling for women versus minorities, and then bridge that down amongst the minorities?
Yes.
Yes.
To all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you are going to always have Caucasian men. Depending on the industry, it would probably then be Caucasian women, but it depends on the industry. The next after that is going to be anybody that's white passing, Black, Asian, biracial, Hispanic, whatever, white passing. And we mean true white passing now, not old school white passing, because, that would look different. And then I think you're going to have Asian men and women, because they are the closest proximity to white. Then probably your fair Hispanic people, Black people, and Hispanic will probably be together.
I think Black, I like that that list, but I still think Black women are at the bottom.
Yeah.
Just like in relationships, that we are the last chosen for everything.
Yeah, I think what has been going on with the market and the industry, because we have been so phenomenal, that there has been no other choice. It has to.
Agree with
I have to choose you,
yeah.
because you over here done did 7 billion things, and they just did one. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's what ends up happening. And then I think in some situations they learn to really maybe even love the people that they've hired, and they're like, oh, she's a good Black, or
not a good Black,
or whatever. I think sometimes when that one individual gets in the door, it helps give a different perspective, because it's not always that people are trying to be intentionally hurtful, intent, impact. But it is, these are still things that you have to work on. If I have an internal bias against orange orangutans, I'm gonna have to work on that. Mm-hmm. Planet of the Apes was running through my head. I couldn't think of nothing else.
That's so funny.
But I would have to work on that.
Yeah.
Or I ain't gonna be able to go to the zoo, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the problem. We don't have a lot of accountability in a lot of these businesses. In America, we are still a very young country, and it's still being built from the ground up.
Yeah, I would agree. All right.
So how do we break these glass ceilings?
Punch it in the face.
Girl, whoop that.
Yes. How do we break these glass ceilings?
Well, I think you got to show up and you got to show out, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you also have to have the knowledge, like Dr. J.H. was talking about, and you need to know the intricacies of playing the game. Mm-hmm. And that's where a lot of people mess up. They don't know the intricacies. Like what we talked about in hustle culture last month is just you hustling ain't gonna get it. You hustle all day long. Mm-hmm. So you gonna have to know how to play the game.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have to play it better than them. And you have to make them think it was their idea.
Yeah. And you can't go in there and be like, I don't play games. I'm not getting ready to play. Okay. Then you better go back to where you came from. Because you ain't gonna have no choice.
Yeah.
Until you can get in there and maybe change some things on your own.
Yeah. Yes. Now don't sell your soul.
No.
Because you ain't gonna get it back.
Yeah. Don't do that. No. Do play the game in reason.
Yes. I think I'm gonna piggyback on that one. No.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna piggyback on that one.
And I would add to companies need to make sure they are doing regular bias and stereotyping training by someone of color, because non-colored people can't do
non-colored.
There's only one. But I get what you're saying.
Hey, I'm just saying, non-colored people cannot do that training because they don't know about it. Mm-hmm. You can't do a training on something you don't know. And a lot, I'm not going to say everybody, and a lot don't take the time to learn about it. It would be different if you took some multicultural classes, not just one. Classes.
People typically don't understand things until it impacts them. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, that doesn't really happen. Okay, cool. Now you got this little black granddaughter. And you're like, it does happen. We told you this 400 years ago, but it's okay.
Yes, I would agree with that. Okay. Anything else?
No, I just think make sure you're, checking in with yourself. Make sure you know that this is what you really want as far as the pursuit. And it's okay to take breaks. Like, you don't have to just steamroll yourself.
Reassess.
And I would say understand the industry that you're trying to get into. Like we were saying earlier, if it's a predominantly male industry and that's what you're trying to get into and trying to climb up that ladder, understand what you're getting into.
Yes.
And be safe, please.
Have discernment.
If y'all going out drinking, take your boo. I don't care if you boo a woman, man, whatever. Take your boo.
And even if your boo is your best friend, take your best friend.
Yes.
Discernment. Okay. Well, y'all know we always end off with a quote, and this one is brought to you by our current Madam Vice President, Kamala Harris. When you break through a glass ceiling, you're going to get cut and it's going to hurt.